It's Wednesday, February 19th. I'm Adam Walsh, and this is The Signal. I said it's February, right? That means it's Black History Month. Today in the show, we're going to talk about some events happening this month, and we will speak with some folks from the local Black community about what the month means to them and what they want folks to know about their experiences living in this province. All right, we've got Nicole Obiodiaka. How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Been up, what was it, 2 weeks ago you're here for the Munn Show?
Yes.
Now you're back. All right. Thank you so much. Karen Gandu, first time. How you doing?
Hi, I'm good. Thanks. How are you?
Good. And Laurabelle Umba, welcome back.
Hi.
All right. Well, Black History Month. Big first question. When it rolls around, right?
Yeah.
And I know everyone's got different answers and different thoughts depending on who you are, where you're from, and how long this has kind of been something you've been thinking about. In your world, Laurabelle, because I see you all over the place, like when it comes to this month, right? Because you're doing a whole lot of stuff.
Yeah.
But what is this month for yourself?
Honestly, this month is like Christmas.
Yeah.
At least for me, it's like Christmas for me just because of how much effort has gone into like advocating for this month over the last little bit for me. So before it wasn't a really big deal. Like when I was younger, it was like, yay, I got to see Black people in school. And that was fun for me as a kid getting that representation. And then when I moved to Newfoundland originally, it wasn't a thing here. So it was February and it was cold.
That was it.
And it was just it. And then my son was born and then it became, oh no, this month needs to be something for me again. And then in this year, it was a really big deal. And like people who've talked to me since Sunday, and anyone who talked to me Sunday realized how cool this month has gotten for me. Like there were a couple teary-eyed moments in the last little bit. Yeah,
and you've got, because I follow you in a few different places, but one of them, it's Laurabelle Umba Consulting, right?
Yes, it is.
Tell folks just a little bit about that.
Oh, yeah. So that was formerly Race Table Talks NL.
Yeah.
And then it was formerly Race to Dinner, Newfoundland and Labrador, and then through lots of work and rebranding and just kind of figuring out who I am and what I'm doing in community, it became like my own consultancy. And then when it came to Black History Month, it is a month-long promotion of all things cool and Black and everything that is. And so this year, the focus was on the Black diaspora and books and music and food and everything, and just celebrating Black experiences from multiple points. So Black women, Black people with disabilities, Black queer folk, and Black youth, and seeing what they had to say. So we focused on books written from people with these intersecting identities. We try to cover at least 20 different countries.
Yeah.
And so they're like 20 different foods, 20 different songs. There's an entire playlist. I went ham for this year, but I was so excited about this year, and it's even been like a learning for me when it came to the books. So yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I was looking at the list earlier today, and also in the lead up to the show. So so folks, give it a follow.
Cool.
Lots of great. Got one off the top of your head you want to recommend?
So there are a couple. So the one that is been a really big for me, actually, and I didn't expect it to be such an emotional one for me, was the very first one I started with, which is Chiamanda's book, The Half of a Yellow Sun. And that one was really big for me just because I'm Nigerian too, but it talks about the Biafran War. And as someone who is Nigerian and Igbo and trying to understand this really pivotal moment in Nigerian history, but Igbo history that I'm connected to, but also it sits so far from me just because of moving and all that, getting to experience what like my parents were going through because they lived in Nigeria at this time. And it's something that like I've been told about as my youth, be like, yeah, people were starving, we were hunkering down. And I was like, it seems so far away.
Yeah.
But getting to live it through the characters in the book and getting to see the white European context of it in the book also was very jarring at points, but there are points where you're laughing because you're like, oh, I know these cultural jokes. And then getting to do it and seeing like names that are so Nigerian and so Igbo be on paper and see them as fully developed characters and people like I would have seen in my own life is very cool, especially when you're used to reading and Black characters are very two-dimensional.
Yeah.
But seeing the richness in these people, it's been a real learning process for me as well.
Excellent.
So, yeah.
All right. And we can keep dipping back into some. And I'll mention what I'm reading too later in the show as well. Karen, what about yourself? So let me see. Visual artist, went to Grenfell. Tell us about yourself briefly, more than what I just did. And then I'll ask you about Black History Month.
Oh my God, that's such a hard question.
We've got the whole show. We've got 50 minutes left, so go for it.
Who am I? Yes, visual artist. I did go to Grenfell. Those are all true. I am also, I would like to say, up and coming emerging curator. I am an actor. I like to play in theater as well, set design. Professionally, I am a communications specialist, and I'm a daughter, sister.
All right.
Nigerian as well. So, yeah.
Yeah, no shortage of Nigerian representation here at the table today. Tell us then about just your thoughts around Black History Month, just as a jump off for the discussion.
I feel like Black History Month is something I never really, was something so far away from me growing up in Nigeria and just watching it on TV, just something that these people do, and it's very different when you come here and then you move from being African, you move from being in someone's home, and then you turn to, you're more aware of your identity because then you turn to Black, and I've never been Black.
Yeah, the capital B, right?
Yeah. I've never been Black. I've just been, Ariwa. I've always been Northern. I've always been Nigerian, and now I'm Black. Like, how did I get here?
How'd that happen?
Yeah, so being Black History Month it makes you more aware of like the many identities that people hold and people share, and just the uniqueness that connects us together, no matter how far away or how different your experience is or your culture is or whatever. I think Black History Month it's like very grounding. It's a very grounding and self-reflective moment.
Yeah, and when we were talking about this before the show, right? When we talk about Black History Month in Canada or Newfoundland and Labrador, we're talking about the African continent, right? All the countries there. We're talking about the Caribbean. We're talking about folks perhaps born in Newfoundland and Labrador or born in Canada. Like it's just there's a lot of different visions and views and thoughts around the capital B here when we dissect.
Yeah, exactly.
All right.
Exactly.
Nicole, I feel like we talk all the time now. Tell us your thoughts on Black History Month.
Yeah, so I do definitely share the same sentiment moving from Nigeria. I didn't, like I said, being Black wasn't a thing until I came to the province. And I would say for me, Black History Month is an opportunity to highlight some of the influential, they don't even have to be necessarily influential, but just some of the Black people that exist within our community that could possibly add back to the community. So I've tried to do that with like Centra, so like having the Black-owned market as well, so that after the market, these businesses can hopefully be identified and used in other events outside of Black History Month. When that comes to theater, it's my opportunity to put a spotlight that, okay, these are the many talented Black actors, playwrights, set designers, musicians, you name it, so that outside of Black History Month, they can also get equal access to opportunity to advance their skill sets and show their talent and share that with the larger community. And when I was a student, it was the same thing. Black History Month was an opportunity to create a safe space to let other Black people know each other, create that safe space, that community. So I always see this as a month to, number one, celebrate some of the great work that's being done by the Black community, and also create that sense of belonging and a safe space for all of us to sort of come together, share those teary-eyed moments, like Laura Bell said, and hopefully integrate with the community a bit better afterwards.
Yeah, you mentioned the Central Cultural Collective, which you started right before you were student leader, and so you've been doing a lot of this work over recent years.
Yes, yeah. I've been doing it since 2020. Right. Yes, it may not have been branded as Centra, but the work in general continued within and outside of school.
The start was.
Yes.
Excellent. Isaac, how you doing?
I'm doing great.
I'm used to talking to you about Metrics Flow, which is your tech company that you're the CEO and founder of. I was looking on LinkedIn, which I do sometimes, right? Because I'm just like scrolling down because all the local professionals put posts up. But then there's like your post about Black History Month really made an impact, right? Because I was reading, I was like, wow, this is so. Just tell folks. Well, the start says, 2 years ago, I was asked to speak on Black excellence with representation from Black communities, the Premier and Lieutenant Governor of Newfoundland and Labrador. Because I was born in Africa and didn't have many history lessons about slavery in North America, the experience elevated my level of curiosity to learn more about the contributions of my Black ancestors beyond slavery. So that's the start. You want to pick up from there and tell us more about this post and your thoughts around it?
Yeah, thanks so much. And I think my story is very similar to everyone here that grew up in Nigeria. We were not identified as Blacks. We were just identified as Nigerians. Yeah. And we had different cultures. We had different tribes. And but race was not the identifier back home. But when we moved to North America, it became, we got profiled into, the big B, like you said. And when I was asked to speak on Black excellence, I didn't have a lot of, knowledge about what the contributions were in North America. I was aware of the contributions back in Nigeria because my parents and probably everyone here as well were not born into a free country. Yeah, it wasn't until 1960 before Nigeria became an independent country, and so there was always a celebration on October 1st every year. And growing up as a kid back home, I always remember we had to go to a place called Eagle Square. Yeah. It's in Abuja, and we always had like a military parade where we would march and sing, songs of freedom. And so the history for me was more about the Nigerian independence and how we get our independence. And coming to North America, it became a bigger celebration of Black History Month. And so the Black History Month become something more global, which incorporates Africans in diaspora and those back in Africa. And I always have to tell people that Africa is not a country.
It's the country of Africa.
It's a continent, and it doesn't only include Nigeria. It includes other 54 countries, different languages, different types of food. It's the languages, the way of life, the way they dress, the names. They all represent something that is really, rooted in culture. When I was asked to speak on Black excellence, I had to change my understanding of excellence because we Black were not introduced to the world as free people. The introduction was done for us as slaves. And so there's this connotation around Black History Month means celebration of slavery, but there's more to that. Those who left Africa, who left the continent, yes, they came as slaves, but they were also innovators. And I think that was what I was trying to capture in that post, to say, yes, they were slaves, but they were also innovators. And these were the other things that, they did while they were in the continent. And I don't think that's captured in books and in articles. And so, speaking to that part of the contributions was what I was, that was my line of thought when I was writing that.
And before we go a little further into that, anyone have any thoughts on the post or just what Isaac's talking about?
I loved it. When I saw his post, it was like, yay! And I love it because it wasn't this curated thing. It was him just...
Very real.
It was. And so it was one of the things I was really touched by.
Yeah. Anyone else?
It was the same for me. It was very authentic and relatable and very refreshing to see on my timeline, especially with that narrative of what everything that Black History Month is typically portrayed as, like slavery and things of that nature, which is definitely important to still talk about, but there's another aspect to it. So it was really refreshing to see that post come from you and also to see that coming from not only Canada, then not only Newfoundland, but also St. John's. Like to see that being the origin of what brought that to my timeline was like, I love this. I think I liked it. If I didn't, I'm probably sure I did. You might not, but I definitely liked the post because I loved it. Yeah.
You highlight it. So with this post, right, with everything you just explained, you highlighted Dr. Bola Ogunyemi, right? As you say, right? And this name, folks might be like, oh, this name's familiar, right? Because it's a fellow alumni of Memorial University for yourself. Well, I mean, I went there too, so me too. Recently made history by becoming the first president-elect of the Canadian Medical Association in its 158 years of existence.
158?
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? So you went on to talk a little bit more. What else did you say in the post? I can say it too if you, I have the words in front of me, like unless it's in your memory. But
yeah, no, I think what I was trying to capture in that was, yes, it was 158 years, but there were two aspects to it, right?
Yeah.
First, as a black medical doctor, and then second, as the first in the history of Memorial University who's been around since Second World War.
Yeah.
So he pretty much, also brought Newfoundland to the global stage of saying, yes, we do have a lot of expertise in the province. So there's two aspects to that. Now, if we look at how he got there, I think he has demonstrated, and he's now an emblem of, representation to many blacks. I have a daughter who's 13 years old. I'm hoping if she wants to study medicine, she can look at Dr. Ogunyemi and say, he is a doctor and he is a president-elect right now, and he can do it and I can do it as well. So there's representation to it. But there's also the element of what he has had to overcome and those who have come before him, what they've had to endure as well. If you look at the history of why it took that long, blacks were banned from studying medicine in 1918. And most people would say, oh, that's a long time ago. But that's over 100 years of blacks not being admitted into medicine schools. And when I came to Memorial University, the first thing I could pick quickly was blacks were not studying medicine. I knew a lot of black people who wanted to study medicine who came here but just couldn't get in. Now, I'm not saying that the admission process is not, tedious and long, and but I also think there's intentionality to how, students were admitted into med schools. And when I saw Dr. Ogunyemi, I think the first time I saw him was on a track field at the Aquarena, and I was like, wow, he just looks like a superstar, right? Like, like he's in medicine. Wow, I just didn't think that was the thing that black people did. And so for him to
when you say black people did, it's not because we don't do it, because we're not allowed to do it.
Yeah, but that's in the context of North America, right? Back in the continent, most doctors who were doctors in North America either studied elsewhere and then migrated here and became doctors. But getting to the medical schools in, say, so I'll take Queen's University as an example. The ban was on in 1918. It was officially repealed by the Senate in 2018. So that's 100 years, right? So if you look at it from a legal perspective, it was illegal to study medicine at Queen's, right? But then there are other ripple effects to that. If you don't see someone who looks like you, who acts like you in a position of power, in a position of authority, then it diminishes or it reduces the chance of having other people who want to pursue medicine. And so where I was coming to that was, if we can have someone like Dr. Ogunyemi study medicine and break all those barriers, then I think it's a positive for black people, and also I think it's a positive for Canada as well.
Yeah, I remember when I was growing up, there's a thing a teacher said once. One year I did okay at school, and the teacher was like, "Oh, the sky's the limit for ad." My mom would say this, right? "Oh, your teacher in like kindergarten or something said this," and when I would look around, there was representation for white representation everywhere. But I'm just thinking, if I were to be in a position where no matter how good or whatever I was doing, if there wasn't that representation there, obviously there can be self-limiting stuff there.
Yeah, and I think that's, to add to that, I think that's something that's also often lost or misunderstood, because a lot of times I get asked why, are we giving an unfair advantage to black people by highlighting them, and aren't there other non-black people who are doing the same things? Questions of that nature. And exactly what you said, that is the importance, and you might not grasp why that's important because you've never not had that. So for you, it's what's the difference here? People are people. But no, people aren't people. You're lucky enough that that's been your reality, that you can look to almost anywhere and see people who look like you. So you're like, oh, sure, that's status quo. But it's not.
That's the privilege.
That's the privilege. And that's what you
don't struggle with that idea of privilege. It's because it's invisible to you because it's not something you've had to work with.
Yeah. Folks just think because, if you do have a hard time. So where's the privilege? Well, it's because especially I look at the community here, You grow up, folks, people are a phone call away. Yeah. A job is my last name Walsh.
It's that networking.
It's not a problem. So, but if and this is a newcomer, it could be black, other newcomer experience, different type of name. Historically here, folks have had a lot of difficulty getting jobs because of that.
And it's I think when we're talking about it, the whole idea that so Dr. Gunyemi is breaking major barriers, and there's a joy in that, but there's also like this, it took till 2025, 2024 for us to get here. But I like to say, like, okay, now we get to fast track it.
Yeah.
He gets to start it, but now it means the door is open to crack, but I see that it's going to be kicked open at this point.
Yeah.
If he's opened it a crack, there is, we just needed to see it was possible, and now it's going to be inevitable for the next one.
You can't help but think about the other Black doctors who have tried and were stopped midway.
Exactly.
And how much they fought, but they just couldn't get there. Yeah. And just seeing him being there is very refreshing.
Yeah. And to add to that as well, if you look back at history, and again, that's the whole point of this conversation.
Yes.
A lot of Black students were in the final years when they were actually expelled from med schools.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Right? So, again, this information are embedded. They're not publicly available. But if you go to the universities, they've acknowledged it. They've published on it. That's a century of not just denying the Black people of, studying medicine. It's also a century of denying the world of what the outcomes could have looked like in their contributions to improving medicine.
Yeah.
Because I included some of the top contributions.
Yeah, top 5.
Top 5, yeah. Those were my top 5s. And the reason why I chose them was just the impacts they had, right? And if you look at, the inventions that has happened, like, for example, look at blood donation today. I think it's about over 45 million Americans would need blood.
Right. You had Charles Drew, right, made blood transfusion possible by developing ways to process preserved plasma. Daniel Hill Williams paved the way for open heart surgery. Over 2 million people worldwide have open heart surgery each year. Otis Boykin, right, helped keep the heart beating and pumping blood into the body, invented a control unit that improved the pacemaker. 3 million people rely on it to stay healthy. Patricia Bath invented the laser phaco probe. I'm pretty sure my pronunciation's off on that one, to prevent blindness, though. And this is the thing, as you post it, Isaac, right, that helps to remove cataracts from eyes. So 28 million cataract surgeries a year. And the other one is Kizzmekia Corbett, leading scientist who helped develop the Moderna COVID-19 vaccine.
Yeah, I think there's a code that she led that then Moderna eventually used to develop the Moderna vaccine, and over 100 million people took that shot. So the impact is huge. But if we take all these barriers out and say, if we can encourage more Black people in medicine, I think there could be a lot more contributions from Black communities. And also, if you look at, I like how Amabel talked about the doors are open now, but I think for Blacks to actually thrive, there has to be a similar level of intentionality that was put into preventing them in the first place from studying medicine to using to improve the enrollment in these universities. Yeah. Right? There has to be allocations for Black people in medicines because there were allocations taken away in the past for over 100 years. Yeah. So the way we get there is the same level of intentionality has to be incorporated into the admission process. Now, schools like Queen's University have already started implementing that. Like schools like Dalhousie and Montreal, they do have, it's like a grassroots admission process that encourages. There are a lot of smart Black people that can study medicine, right? And there's always the myth that there's not enough application for a lot of things, and that's just a myth. It's not true. There's been a lot of institutional barriers that prevents people from trying in the first place. So to overcome those challenges, there has to be grassroots initiatives that stimulates the process of encouraging more Black people into those opportunities.
And if you really think about it, taking away those spaces for Black people and opportunities is also taking away the health of Black communities, because there are only diseases that are more prominent in Black people that only a Black doctor will be able to understand.
And the diagnosis rates, even if we think about what common illnesses look like on Black skin versus what they look like on white skin, the fact that chickenpox gets spotted easier, like if you're red and flushed, I don't know the last time any of you went red. But I don't go red, so the chances of spotting those things are harder. And then we think about the Black maternal mortality rate.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And to
sickle cell anemia.
Yeah.
Yes. To your point there,
oh my God.
Yeah. There are real I tend to look a bit more deeper into data, and I can spot patterns, and there are like a lot of instances where Black people were denied of having kidney transplants, and the reason is because the equation used to determine if a Black person was eligible or not has a constant coefficient that immediately just it immediately puts away the opportunity to get a kidney transplant. That formula was eventually, I think it was updated, but it had taken centuries of denial of diagnosis that, they just couldn't diagnose it for Black people because the equations were just
stuff for white guys.
Intentionally for.
Yeah. I mean,
exactly.
Like how much of medicine is just, it's based on studies that are like, and I just mean, and even guys, right? White guys, that is the basis of so much medicine. And then if you're a woman, if you're Black, if you're Asian, right? Like it's not, like you haven't been studied on it, and then this hits your issue, right?
Right.
We were talking about this in the newsroom yesterday with a colleague of mine. So then, in this time, right, with everything you're saying, just there, I'm going to go over to you, Laura Bell. There's a real hard push back against DEI, right, south of the border. And we won't go too far down into this because there's a lot of other stuff I want to talk about in the show. But because we're here and we're talking about some progress, and from your post, Isaac, and I'm looking at the rest of you too. Well, like where are things in whether it's this province or this country compared to what's happening south of the border right now?
They're close.
Yeah.
We have a federal candidate who openly, in a recorded interview, denied racism and the harm done to residential schools victims. We are not where our friends south of the border are yet, but we have a political candidate who parrots the same hatred and vitriol openly. We axe the tax, Canada first is the same as Make America Great Again, if we're going to be very honest.
Yeah.
It's the same. He has voted multiple times in his time in Parliament against DEI initiatives that are there to support everyone. And one of the things I would like people to know about DEI does not mean Black, so let's just wrap our minds around that. DEI stands for everyone. If you are not a rich, cisgender, white male who owns property, you are DEI.
Yeah.
If you are from a low socioeconomic standing, you are DEI. If you are not university educated, you are DEI. If you do not have a family doctor, you are part of that DEI bubble. So if people keep conflating DEI to mean Black, it makes it easier to push yourself away from that ideology and to fall in line with those things. So it's become synonymous for Black, which being Black is not a bad thing. I love being Black, wouldn't trade it for anything in the world. But DEI means everyone and anyone. And it is that challenge of privilege and making sure people understand that one of the things that you think are your privileges are not your rights. They're your privilege. And DEI changes that privilege point to make sure that it is equitable for everyone, regardless of what situation you were born into. Yeah. So I hate seeing what's happening down south. I'm even more afraid to know that we have people not understanding how close it is to happening here. And we keep treating the U.S. as, I can't believe it happened there. We are on the point where we have a federal election coming up. It could be us next. Yeah. And so we have a duty of care. Even if you don't care about the person who looks different, you are next on the chopping block. Don't sell out your neighbor to save yourself at this point.
And also, the ripple effects that could come from that. It's unfortunate, but I guess people might only care unless it happens to them or until it starts to impact them. Because I think on social media, I saw a lot of posts. Social media is permanent. So it was before Trump, they were like, I want this, I want all that, I'm so happy about this. And only when it started to affect them, because they weren't targeted in the media or the campaigns or anything like that. Only when those policies started to impact them and their day-to-day lives, they were like, oh, and now they're complaining. And it's so funny because there are screenshots. This is what you said on this day. Oh, and now you're changing your mind because it affects you. But I feel like literally
the receipts are there.
It's unfortunate because I feel like part of being human, you don't have to necessarily identify with the group to care. Something doesn't need to impact you before you care. Even though you having to even explain that DEI doesn't only mean Black people just to hopefully get some sympathy. Yeah. That shouldn't be the case. You don't have to identify with something to care. It's simple human nature, compassion, empathy. And also staying like silent as well is also, I guess you shouldn't stay silent like in situations of injustice, because that's you basically adding to the injustice in one way or another without realizing. So like, don't just be like, oh, okay, this is not happening to me. Bye, scroll. Look at your community. Like what things can you do, or who can you support within your community to make sure that this doesn't happen to Canada? Like, even if it's something little, like, I don't know, making a post to support, like, I promise your efforts go a long way, no matter how little.
And that's people be seen. Even if we want to take it back to Black History Month, this entire month started for people just wanting to be seen. It was people, like, I know we make the joke over it's the shortest month. It was the shortest month, but it was Frederick Douglass's birthday. It was in this month. It was why it was chosen. It was to give people the ability to be seen, to celebrate those who were so invisible for so long. When people ask, Laura, why do you make such a big deal? I was like, I want to be seen, but even more than that, I want that when my son grows up, he feels seen. He doesn't feel like he has to hide aspects of him. He gets to be wholesome. And to think about all the people who came before us who weren't seen, who made all these accomplishments and these noted innovations. We see the innovations. We don't see the people. We don't see the communities that bred them, that loved them, that cared for them, that fostered them. Yeah. And it's just about that.
And speaking of being seen, Karen, the Art of Being Black...
Like this was coming for me.
The Art of Being Black gallery opening.
Yes.
Tell us about this. I was looking at some... I saw a post from Precious, because you were there too, right?
Yeah.
All right. So tell us about it.
Okay, so the Art of Being Black, it's an initiative that started with Brian and Maddie. Shout out to Brian, who couldn't be here. And the whole idea of it was for it to highlight Black creatives, because as an artist myself, as a creative myself, coming here in 2019, there was very limited Black art. There was very limited Black creatives. And the whole point of TAB is for it to highlight Black creatives and allow them to collaborate. Because one thing about working in the arts, you need to be able to collaborate. Rooted is an exhibition open at Anna Templeton. It's open at Anna Templeton Center right now. The point of it, I feel like it's been a year. Yeah. It's a year of work, because the first piece of it started February 2024 and we completed it February 2025. So it's a year
a lot of work.
It's a year of a lot of work. The key of it was to put Black people in places that you usually not see them, like the Colonial Building. We had shots in Lance Meadows, all the way in the West Coast. We had shots at Grossmore. We had shots in Government House, like just places you will not often see Black people there, who have historically been erased from those spaces, who barely ever go to those spaces, places that feel very far and out of reach. It was very intentional to put them in those places and capture them in their wholesomeness and in their person, and present them to the world as, these are Black Newfoundlanders who come from very vast histories and cultures, and who have chosen to make this place home, and who are trying to reclaim the history of Blackness in Newfoundland. So it's very important that the work that TAB does, and also trying to promote Black creatives, be able to work on their own and together and support Black art.
Yeah, so if there's any question around belonging, it establishes it and also breaks down any perhaps actual barriers, or also some of the mental ones around. It's like, yeah, look, Colonial Building, here's a great picture of someone. Here's the Lancet Meadows, right?
Yes.
Grossmore, all around. Yeah. What's the reaction been so far?
Oh my God, it's been amazing. The reaction has been, Laura told me she almost cried, she shed a tear, and I was like, sometimes when you do a lot of work, you don't even notice the impact it has. And I'm like, okay, we've done this is great, on to the next one. And then when I hear the impact it's had and just how people have sat with it, I've seen this work so many times. I'm like, I'm kind of used to it, and people's reaction to it, it's very wholesome. It allows me to sit and actually soak in the meaning of the work as well. I'm not just putting it out there for human consumption, but also for my own self-reflection. Yeah. And the feedback has been amazing, and I am very, very happy that we've been able to pull this off. And just most of the pieces are up for auction as well. So you can
And at Templeton Center, folks, just give it a little Google or
just
go pop down and you can
send
see
us
it if you're in
an
and around St.
email,
John's.
go look at the works, choose your varying sizes. We have some works that are like 45 inches big. And that's like that. The size is very important because it shows a form of reclamation. It shows a form of like revolution and just like ownership. Like, I deserve to be here. And that's why size is also very important in some of the pieces as well. And it's just, I know it's people's faces, but it is beautiful, beautiful work. And shout out to all the artists that worked on it with us and all the subjects that worked on it with us, because a lot of these people had never modeled before.
Right.
And they felt very, very weird doing this.
It's a vulnerable thing.
It's
especially
very vulnerable.
Like having your picture taken can be vulnerable.
Yes.
Yet, let alone having it up in an art gallery for people to auction bids on.
Yeah, it's very, very vulnerable. We had to shoot in the cold, and the models were shivering, and they gave it their all. So that just shows how much commitment that they were able to like share their world with the world, and it's very important.
What'd you think, Lauren?
Oh, I cried. I fully went home, called my mom, and bawled my eyes out.
Yeah.
Not even. And
It's like a mom.
like, yes, I'm a mom who called her mom over it. And I think the one picture, like, there were a couple that were really beautiful and really got me. It was like the beauty and elegance of Black women in what was known as like the Queen's extension of her arm, like in the government house, and seeing all that there. But the one that actually stole my heart and really made it real, where there were two boys in their full little hats and everything, and to see the joy in their face and to see them playing in a playground, and just to capture that. Usually when people think of Black people showing up in this province, it's for university or for a career.
Yeah.
But we have Black youth who this is the only home they will ever really know, and this is where they should have the ability to claim as theirs. And so to have them captured there was just like, we are here. We are so here. And we get to stay here, and we get to be part of the narrative. And like, we always talk about history as this thing that happened in the past. But like I say, history is made every day, and these kids are part of Newfoundland and Labrador's history.
Yeah, it's the next steps, right?
They are,
as we move, right, from today to tomorrow.
Exactly.
Today will be history.
Exactly.
Yeah, these are the next innovators.
Exactly.
The next Bolu.
They are. And even if they aren't all those things, they are people who are valuable and valid in their existence as is. And to see them captured, it was the moment for me. I was like, they could have said we weren't. They could have said we were transitory. But this picture says we aren't. And we're so much part of the infrastructure of this province. And that was what really made it real. I love the elegance and the beauty and all of that. But it was looking at those two boys, and it was like, you're here. Yeah. No one can ever take that away from you.
Yeah. The building blocks, the chorus of voices for Newfoundland and Labrador. Absolutely. And all of its communities. Nicole, there's something coming up this weekend. Hey, how's the market on the weekend? How was that? Hey, let's go back.
Amazing.
It was fantastic. My fridge is still stocked for a few more days.
Mine is also stocked.
So, okay, hold on. When we say fridges are stocked, what are we talking about here for buying? I'm curious.
Food.
Yeah. What type of food?
Yeah, there was a lot of food. We had some restaurants. So we had the Caribbean corner. So that's Caribbean food. We had a Belizean restaurant as well, Swahili cuisine. Of course, Nigerian food. So yeah, you got to like have a little bit of a taste for some of the cultures that exist within the Black community. So it was like traveling around the world in like 3 steps or 5.
Yes, this was at the St. John's Farmers Market this past weekend, right?
Yes.
That's a lot of great food. Oh my gosh.
Well, there's more than food too. Like there was what we call I don't know if you're not looking visually, you might not see, but what Laurel has on right now is called Ankara. Yeah. It is a beautiful textile of fabric that is just, again, beautiful, full of color. So I think this was the first time for me that I had we had more than 2 vendors who were selling that piece, which was really interesting to note because we've had 5 markets now, and typically we only had 1, maybe 2, but even those 2 people were from Nigeria. So this time around we have someone who wasn't Nigerian, and I believe she was selling some Kente as well. So even just that, even though it was just like one other person, that was really nice to see, like just how much the community has like not even the community, the fact that business owners as well are like creating more products, bringing their services and things like that from different walks of life, and to have that all housed in one place was, I loved it. And I learned a lot from even like the conversations to understand like the origins and things of that nature. And I bought one, and I'm going to use it in my plate. Well, we're going to use it in the plate.
Okay,
So yes.
exciting.
So then, what does that say about when we're talking about history, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we're talking about new history, recent history, like as of like, this past week, like when you see all of those folks, right, from the different food, the different textiles, the different fabrics, all coming together for a Black-owned market. What does that say about the new history of the capital B and all the communities within it for Newfoundland and Labrador as part of Newfoundland and Labrador culture?
Evolution, I'd say. Yeah, it has a strong sense of evolution to it. It shows how far we've come in such a short amount of time and how much farther we can go in the next couple of years. And it's very exciting and refreshing to see.
I think it also like continues to build that community. So like I know when I first came, I felt really alone for a little bit, and then it was really intentional to build that community. But to show up in a space and see two people selling something similar but also so different, because Kente is Ghana specific and it's its own thing and it has its own story, versus Ankara, which is Nigeria, and then like the wax print versus all of this. And to hear those like conversations, like to someone who doesn't understand the nuances, it might all look the same. But to the people who do, it's, hey, there's a part of me, but there's almost so much difference and diversity in the Black experience. And it's nice to see people share the similarities, but also discuss those differences in such a positive way.
Yeah, you walk in and if you're not familiar, all of a sudden you can be like, oh, that's quite the education I'm getting here.
Yeah,
There's this culinary tour with everything else and talking to folks and then learning a little bit about everyone's backstories. Yeah, like that's it's a major.
Yeah, it
major
also
thing.
shows representation, because talking about representation in like the Black sense, but even in the little layers that we are formed, there's also a need for representation. Because now a Ghanaian person will see the Kente and be like, yes, I feel more seen because there's Kente here and I know where to get it from, and just kind of things. It's a layered experience.
And I think, I was just going to say, I think for me, something that also comes to mind with that is I always, at least try to, because I'm always so busy at the market, but like the demographic that also comes to like support the market, like it's not one of either or, which I love. Like I absolutely love that. So like you definitely have the Black community that are coming to support as well, but you also have members of the white community as well that are coming to these markets, people of other different demographics. And I think even this year I saw a post and it really warmed my heart. It was something little, nothing crazy, but it was on a Facebook group and someone asked, is there any market that's happening like today on Sunday? I missed it. I was like, oh my gosh, I can see the comments. I was like, I'm really hoping someone said the Black-owned market. And someone commented like, yeah, like there's this Black-owned market going on. Here's the picture. And she tagged her friend and she was like, hey girl, get ready. We're going to this market. And it was like, to me, that meant so much because it was like I didn't have to be the one to like respond and post, or like my friends or people that knew me or people that were within the Black community weren't the ones to post, to reply to that comment. Someone else did that was outside of the community. And it really warms my heart, the amount of support that I get from people. I don't know if anyone drives down from Paradise or like from surrounding cities. I think some people do, I don't know. But just the support, especially when you think of like winter as well, because we've had a market, even this one, like the roads still weren't like the best conditions and people still showed out in numbers. So when you look at everything that's going on, I don't want to get teary-eyed, like I'm really emotional, but it's like when you look at everything that's like going on outside, and what people's views are, it's very, I feel a bit, I won't say a bit, I feel safe here, knowing that at least for the most part, those beliefs aren't shared here, at least not on a majority scale that I can see. So I feel safe, and I'm just very, very grateful that the community understands the importance of why this needs to happen and the importance of showing up and supporting them. So that's my little spill.
On my lens of things, the part that I noticed there, I think there perhaps could have been a time where when the Black-owned market, like if it was a new thing or whatever, there could have been a question, and then perhaps the need to convince or explain or whatever else, as opposed to grab your stuff, we're going right now, this is awesome.
Yes.
Like that is the gap, like that's a bridge, right?
Yes.
For development. Isaac, what do you think?
Yeah, no, I think it's a great initiative. It's also a way for people to introduce themselves.
Yeah.
and get to know, individuals for who they are, and just beyond, the norms that most people might have about Black people. I think Black people, like I said, are rich in culture, the way of life, the way we eat. Those are all put into the products that most people would bring into those marketplaces, and I think it's a great initiative, and I'm excited about it. Yeah. I think I saw one of the pictures. I think it was Precious that posted it for the gallery, and to me it was very important because I just feel it's a way for Africans to introduce themselves as well. Like I said, like most Africans were brought in the earliest days were brought as slaves, where didn't get the opportunity to introduce themselves. Those Africans coming out of the continent now, and the new generation is about, hello, my name is Isaac. We get to actually introduce ourselves by, and I think capturing those moments and from an African perspective, is different from what many people might be accustomed to about African people. So I think these are all great initiatives that will help. And then what I'm actually really excited about is the future of Africans, right? I think the world is yet to see the beauty and the yet to see the best of Africa.
Yeah.
And these are the things that I'm excited about, that as we continue to move forward, I think Africans and the continent itself has a lot to contribute just to the world.
I've wondered about, because something you said earlier too. You say like Nigerian culture, and arriving here, and it's capital B Black culture. And there have been times in the past where I've wondered, is there and it's not this, but from talking to folks, but I've wondered sometimes, do people have a sense of loss of culture if you're like, well, I'm Nigerian, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh wait, now I'm Black, and what does that mean exactly? And as you figure that out, but from the conversations I keep having, and from what you folks have talked about today, is even just here and before, it's more. It sounds like more of an augmentation, building thing and building out. I don't know. Like, tell me what.
It depends, I think, on when you come in. So I came at 8, and so there was a shedding of culture.
Yes.
To try and fit in, to try and assimilate, because like I came, but I was the wrong Black. So there was a Black that was not accepted, but semi-understood, and that was Caribbean Black, because I came to Toronto first.
Right.
So I was African Black, which was like, wait, what are you? And then there's the whole thing. And then now, I think also depending on the method and how you get here, it's do you show up as, like when you're realizing you're Black, and then it's like, do you show up as Black because they say you're Black, or do you show up as Nigerian, Ghanaian, Caribbean? Yeah. Who do you get to show up as? And so like even with when I was running, like, tell me what it means for you to be Black, and I've had people say like, Black is what you tell me that I am, but this is who I am. I am Nigerian, I am Caribbean, I am Haitian, I am all of these things, and Black is just the one aspect that you get to decide. But I'm telling you what it means for me to be this identity. And
you put out a call for young folks, right?
Yeah.
How many got in touch with you?
So 19.
19. So you've been talking to 19 young folks.
I've been talking to 19 young folks.
How's that?
It has been really interesting, I would say, because I didn't have any preconceived notions on what they would submit and what they would tell me it would be, and I was really trying not to decide what I thought they would tell me. And there were like 2 submissions all of the submissions stood out for me, and I really loved reading all of them. And like they're all live now on the municipality's Newfoundland and Labrador website. But there was one person who wrote, I didn't know what to submit in terms of a piece. So here's a picture of me and my Black girlfriends. And this is what it is.
My God.
And I was like, yes, because it doesn't have to be this grand idea. When everyone talks like Black excellence, and I was like, yay excellence, I'm on mediocrity, because like that's where I thrive. But I was like, it doesn't have to be grand, it can just be, and that's worth being celebrated. And then there was a poem written about the idea of Blackness as in what the Western world tells you it means to be Black versus what you think it means to be you, because Black is a label, not the whole signifier of who you are and what you are. And then people just saying literally outright, Black is your label for me. That's not who I am. And then we're having conversations in like a group chat, and people saying, why are we claiming Black versus why aren't we claiming our nationalities? And some people being like, we are Black, and others being like, I'm more than Blackness, and that just watching the nuance in those conversations, and other people like, is it all African? And people like, Blackness is not just African. Blackness is Caribbean. Blackness is biracial. Blackness is so many big things and so many little things. And like when I think about this month, it is all those conversations that like make it better than Christmas. It's a little gift each time I get into it.
And I like that too, because that's something I've noticed a lot about this Black History Month specifically. Like there's events across all spectrums. So yes, people definitely do deserve recognition for what they're doing right now and what they've done in the past. But there's also smaller things like just, hey, let's gather together and like belong. I think there's something with ANC like
the Black Belonging art piece that they're doing.
Exactly. So it's just, I don't know. I love the fact that there's things on different scales that celebrate the entirety, not even the entirety, I would say attempt to celebrate the entirety of being Black without just solely focusing on history and greatness, just the existing portion too, and making sure that's celebrated.
Yeah, because St. John's Pride has stuff too.
Yeah, right? St. John's Pride is talking about even the intersectionality of being Black and queer, and being Black and queer from where does your Blackness originate from? So we have, and then what's your gender identity? We have people who are Caribbean, people who are African, people who identify as male, people who identify as trans. Like, where is your Blackness, and what does it mean to all the other aspects of who you are as an individual? Yeah. And it's like, I don't know, I love this one. Clearly, I'm overhyped about this one.
Nicole, what's coming up this weekend?
Yeah, so I guess also to add with what Karen said, so the Art of Being Black is going to be part of what is happening this weekend. So if you want to engage with Brian, you can. And the event it's a two-day Night of the Arts event that Centra is doing in partnership with the RCA Theatre at the LSPU Hall. So it's on February 22nd and 23rd. It's all on our Instagram page, Centra NL, or you can just go to the LSPU Hall's website. It'll all be there. So it's an event that is created to celebrate and showcase the arts, Black arts, across all industries. So we're going to have music performances, spoken words, play performances, and readings. We're going to have the screening of The Art of Being Black there as well. And it's an opportunity to highlight, because I remember when I did my first play in, I don't know, a couple years back at St. John Shorts, the comment, it wasn't all Black, but like it was a majority Black cast, but it was an entirely BIPOC cast. And the comment that was said to me was, wow, we didn't know that there was this much talent that existed within the Black community. Like, where are you and where have you been? And that's the problem, I guess, that we're trying to solve. It's like to other people might be like, oh, well, can't they just go sign up for this or sign up for that? You don't know that they saw that post. You don't know that they felt, I guess, confident or like reassured enough to do those type of things. So that's why it's important when we keep doing these things and have an event like the one that we're having this weekend. It's a first of its kind, so to showcase the talent that exists. And my hope and my intent is that after this, they would also be given equal access to opportunities within the art space. So yeah, come support, celebrate, interact, all the good stuff.
And there's so much of today's conversation, right? From the medical side of the conversation to the art space side of the conversation, it's all of that. So we got like 30 seconds. Any final thoughts? Thanks, folks. I should have mentioned a book, the one I'm reading, Parable of the Sower by Octavia E. Butler. The foreword by LeVar Burton. Okay. It's about climate change in the year 2024 to 2027.
Oh, goodness.
Fires in L.A. Octavia E. Butler was, in 1995, the first science fiction writer to receive the MacArthur Fellowship.
Oh, wow.
Was this book written pre this?
Written in 93.
Okay, cool. So dystopian future come to life.
Yeah.
Wicked.
So this is where we are. It's a fantastic book. I'm just digging into it now by a fantastic Black author. Thanks for this, folks. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
Before you let us go, the super cool thing in terms of that, I got to hear this really cool quote that Black people don't typically see them. People say we are not futuristic. I was like, the only reason Black people exist now is because we've seen ourselves in the future. In the past was slavery, the present is precarious. The future is the only place we get to be free.
Well, thank you so much for that.
Period.
Yeah.
All right, folks, that is it for today's show. Oh, gosh, we're up against the clock. Tomorrow, a conversation with the tech community about U.S. tariff threats, risks, vulnerabilities. We'll look at responses and opportunities that lay ahead. Thanks for listening.